It's Friday, the 22nd of January 2021. My name is Toby Lepati Mesme. This is another edition of MesmePolitics, bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a unique leftist perspective for the next half hour. Get in touch in the chat. Please subscribe. Let's get into it. Lots to get through as we wrap up the work week. We will, of course, as always, be on over the weekend as well. So, the new UK COVID variant, the one we've been dealing with for a while, B117, may increase the death rate by a factor of 1.3, alongside being more contagious, and it may be 30% more deadly. So a new variant of COVID-19 that emerged in southeast England last year and spread around the world may be more deadly than the coronavirus in circulation in the first wave of the epidemic. That's according to Boris Johnson. Scientists on the government's new and emerging respiratory virus threats advisory group, NERVTAG, have concluded that the new variant, named B117, may increase the death rate by a multitude of 1.3. The increased lethality of the variant was confirmed by the Prime Minister at the number 10 press briefing today. 4 teams of researchers at Imperial, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, Public Health England and Exeter University assessed the virus's lethality by comparing death rates among those who tested positive for the new variant with those who were infected with older variants. The new variant was first spotted in Kent on the 20th of September and linked to the sharp rise in cases in the south and east of England during the November lockdown. Dr. David Strain, a senior clinical lecturer at the University of Exeter Medical School, said that the possibility that the new UK COVID variant was not only more contagious but also more deadly than the previous variants was worrying. Here's the Prime Minister.
So I must tell you this afternoon that we've been informed today that in addition to spreading more quickly, it also now appears that there is some evidence that the new variant, the variant that was first identified in London and the South East, may be associated with a higher degree of mortality. And I'm going to ask Patrick in a minute to say a bit more about that, because it's largely the impact of this new variant that means the NHS is under such intense pressure. With another 40,261 positive cases since yesterday, we have 38,562 COVID patients now in hospital. That's 78% higher than the first peak in April.
So that's the Prime Minister. Boris Johnson there. We can hear him going a bit further, more in depth on the vaccine rollout and how this affects it.
But I also want to answer a key question that I know will be uppermost in your minds. All current evidence continues to show that both the vaccines we're currently using remain effective both against the old variant and this new variant. And so you'll also want to know that our immunisation programme continues at an unprecedented rate. 5.4 million people across the UK have now received their first dose of the vaccine, and over the last 24 hours we can report a record 400,000 vaccinations. In England, 1 in 10 of all adults have received their first dose, including 71% of over 80s.
So that's Boris Johnson. This is not good. This is extremely serious. It's really worrying, as the scientists said. This is not something we wanted to deal with. This was always a possibility. Historically, during the Spanish flu epidemic, the virus did get much more deadly. There's a plurality of things that are not necessarily likely but could happen with variations. This was one of them. We can thank our lucky stars. It's not way more severe. But this underscores the need for a zero COVID suppression strategy going alongside the vaccine rollout. This underscores the need to eliminate the virus, not let it run rampant with, vulnerable groups protected, more or less. That is not a strategy. You know, the Great Barrington Declaration and all that decadent nonsense will not work. We have to be looking at this as a thing we need to eliminate, or get as close to eliminating as possible. We needed zero COVID last March. We need zero COVID now more than ever. This was not inevitable. It did not have to come to this. Things did not have to be this way. Let's learn the lessons and let's change course. We're in the eye of the storm. There is no escape in sight, and we are completely in the eye of the storm of this pandemic. This is the worst point. Every day we hit a point worse than we've ever had in terms of this epidemic, right? This is ground zero. We have a leadership vacuum at the top, and this is absolutely ground zero. The strategy has to be vaccinate, vaccinate, vaccinate. Roll out as fast as possible, 24/7. Vaccinate as many people across Britain as is physically possible, and get as many supplies of the vaccine as possible, and work to support global supply chains in getting the vaccine free of charge to populations around the world. We need an equitable, non-profit rollout of this vaccine. Profiting by big pharma corporations, which lapped up public money in order to develop the thing, is not the way we need to go here. This is not a win for pharmaceutical companies. This is a win for global solidarity and publicly funded research and support that, you know, is inextricably propping up the failing business models of pharmaceutical companies. And alongside vaccinate, we have to suppress. Get the thing eliminated. Lock down hard and fast, as we're doing now, but go further, and eliminate the virus. Eliminate as much as possible and get in place local public health team run. You know the drill. You know, give the money to the local councils. Test, trace, isolate. Proper financial support, not just £500 checks which are being spoken of. Proper long-term financial support to incentivise staying at home, to support livelihoods, to support jobs, to support the economy, and grow out with something better. Go for zero COVID. Vaccinate alongside suppress. That is the only feasible path that sees us in any semblance of normality as we head into 2022. It's what we have to do. Another headline story today in the UK. UK government borrowing hit its highest December level on record as spending soared in response to the coronavirus pandemic, coupled with a steep drop in tax receipts. The Office for National Statistics said borrowing hit £34.1 billion last month, about £28 billion more than the same month a year ago. The increase took the government's budget deficit, the gap between spending and tax income plus other receipts, to nearly £271 billion for the first 9 months of the financial year, a rise of more than £212 billion compared with the same period last year, as the COVID-19 pandemic far outstripped the damage wrought by the 2008 global financial crisis. The Office for Budget Responsibility, the independent forecasting unit with a neoliberal bent, has estimated borrowing will hit £394 billion by the end of the financial year in March. That is what we're looking at right now. The cost to the government of the soaring national debt has also fallen to the lowest level since the 1690s, you heard me, helped by historically low interest rates and the Bank of England's multi-billion pound quantitative easing bond buying programme. Charlie McCurdy, a researcher at the Resolution Foundation, said this level of spending may be eye-wateringly large, but it is absolutely necessary in order to tackle the virus and protect families and firms from the crisis. Pressure is mounting on the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, to increase financial support to businesses and workers during the latest restrictions as the pandemic edges Britain's economy closer to a double-dip recession. Okay, so deficit hawkery, which we will see begin to pop up, you're flogging a dead horse, basically. And the assorted rhetoric of balancing the books and prudence and the government being like a household, you might think most of that is dead. It is going to start to revive, and people may start to be susceptible to it. So we have to keep pushing against that. That is a dead horse. That is just wrong. No matter how eloquent and simple and nice it sounds, it is economically wrong, it is economically illiterate to view the government and how it functions, particularly in a country like Britain, in the same way a household functions. It's completely could not be more wrong. This is a long-term thing. This is like after the Second World War, if not worse. We have ageing population, need for huge investments in areas like social care. We have a climate crisis to tackle. We have a shrinking workforce and a growing dependent population as people age longer and longer and live longer and longer. That's, of course, a good thing that people are living so long. It's the mark of success as a society in one way or other. This is a long-term thing, right? These interest rates are not going to shift anytime soon. And it is going to be a very gradual process. If this ever goes, most major economies around the world are going to be running huge deficits for a long time, for a very long time, perhaps indefinitely. That is the economic reality of the situation we're in right now. Attempting to shrink it forcefully anytime soon would trigger an economic meltdown, spending cuts particularly. It's right that the government brings in more through a wealth tax, through property taxes, through hitting the well-off hardest, and leaving working families alone during this. The Tories won't do that because they are the party of the 1%, but that's what needs to be done. It's likely if they do anything, it will be a punitive approach or spending cuts through the back door at the local level. But I reiterate, attempting to shrink this as a strategy anytime soon, be it from Labour, be it from the Tories, is a fool's errand. It's folly. It has no basis in actual reality. Over to the states. And Senator Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, and the minority leader in the Senate, asked Democrats on Thursday to delay former President Donald Trump's impeachment trial right the way until mid-February, complicating their hopes of reaching a swift agreement to prevent the proceeding from interfering with the crucial first weeks of President Biden's tenure. Mr. McConnell made the request on a day when Mr. Biden's call for unity was already running into partisan dysfunction in the Senate. Mr. McConnell and Senator Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, and the new majority leader, were locked in a separate stalemate over how they would share power and whether Democrats would promise to preserve Republicans' ability to filibuster legislation. The deadlock highlighted Mr. McConnell's determination to maintain his leverage, to thwart Mr. Biden's priorities, and the difficulty Democrats must have doing business with a one-vote majority. The result, on Mr. Biden's first full day in office and the Democrats' first in total control of Congress, the Senate was in a state of suspended animation, unable to move forward with even the basic tasks of organising committees or setting rules for getting virtually anything done. Well, impeachment was always going to be a politically damaging thing for the new administration. It still will be. It contradicts the whole unity thing. It reopens political wounds. It rallies Republican voters around Republicans, and it could be extremely politically damaging and demoralising because it can be framed to look like a witch hunt, even though it's not. But morally, this has to be done. We have to break the cycle of impunity. Why not do it with Trump? Presidents, time and time again, have escaped scrutiny and acted with impunity after literally being war criminals in office. In this case, the guy attempted an insurrection. Let's break the cycle of impunity and do it, reach agreement with the Republicans on the timing, but insist you do it at the time that is least damaging. I don't know when that is. I'm sure people in the Biden team will know. What time is the least disruptive or damaging for the Biden agenda? Pick that. Pick the least evil and do it at that time. Be that now, be that mid-February, don't keep leaving it along. Get it over and done with. It is looking less and less likely by the day that he'll be convicted. There was a little point where it looked like the votes might be there. I think it is looking less and less likely that Trump will actually be convicted, even dangling the carrot of banning him from seeking office again. I may change my mind on that again, seeing what the mood is on the ground. But that's how things are right now. We live in hope, but we will see. It has to go ahead. Morally, ethically, it has to go ahead. Looking over at Russia, the Kremlin on Friday welcomed the Biden administration's offer today, Friday, to extend a nuclear disarmament treaty that is set to expire next month, signalling, as has been expected, that Russia intends to cooperate with the United States on nuclear security, despite President Biden's pledges to otherwise pursue a harder line on Moscow than his predecessor. The agreement was last updated in 2010 and puts a cap on the number of strategic nuclear warheads both sides can deploy. It does not limit the number of strategic weapons kept in storage or smaller nuclear explosives intended for tactical use on the battlefield. The Trump administration had resisted approving a 5-year extension under a provision in the original treaty, while seeking to expand the agreement to also cover China's arsenal. That approach unravelled when Beijing declined to negotiate. Mr. Biden has long favoured approving a simple extension of the existing treaty, as has the Kremlin. The Kremlin spokesman, Dmitry S. Peskov, said we can only welcome the political commitment to extend this document. The treaty caps the number of strategic nuclear warheads the sides can deploy at 1,500 warheads each. It is symbolically important, as the last of the late Cold War era disarmament deals still in force, despite the souring relations between Russia and the United States. Right, this is one of the problems with Democrats. They have always been, but particularly during the Trump years, they've sort of taken it as a cudgel to beat the Republicans with. They've been too hawky on Russia. You know, these are the people that brought you the extreme centrist fever dream, the neoconservative fever dream that was Russiagate. They are too hawky on Russia. It is extremely worrying. It was a huge strike against them in terms of what party would be less horrific in terms of foreign policy. Any treaty here, it's good, right? It's good. It acts to de-escalate tensions because the Democrats are saying really worrying things on Russia. They're singling Russia out in a very unique way. And it is not based in pragmatic reality. It is based in agitation and the desire of various actors within the national security establishment, military-industrial complex, deep state, to escalate tensions with Russia, because that's, of course, what they want to do. That's how American foreign policy works. We need to see de-escalation with Russia on this. The last thing we need is an escalation of tensions with Russia. The last administration took a uniquely hardline approach on Russia. You don't hear that in the media, but they did. Let's not go any further. Let's dial it back. The worry is it's going to go even further, and then this will be the administration that's been toughest on Russia. And it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. You know, of all the problems in the world, all the problems on the plate of the incoming administration, let's not start more trouble with Russia. Here's Joe Biden talking about his pandemic strategy.
And while the vaccines provide so much hope, the rollout has been a dismal failure thus far. So I understand the despair and frustration of so many Americans and how they're feeling. I understand why many governors, mayors, county officials, tribal leaders feel like they're left on their own without a clear national plan to get them through the crisis. Let me be very clear. Things are going to continue to get worse before they get better. The memorial we held 2 nights ago will not be our last one, unfortunately. The death toll will likely top 500,000 next month. The cases will continue to mount. We didn't get into this mess overnight, and it's going to take months for us to turn things around. But let me be equally clear. We will get through this. We will defeat this pandemic. And to a nation waiting for action, let me be the clearest on this point. Help is on the way.
That's Joe Biden there, President Biden. Some new news. This is apparently from a couple of hours ago. Chuck Schumer has offered an update, Leader Schumer in the Senate, on the impeachment trial. It looks like they're going for the early way. Take a listen.
Now, as I mentioned, the Senate will also conduct a second impeachment trial for Donald Trump. I've been speaking to the Republican leader about the timing and duration of the trial, but make no mistake, a trial will be held in the United States Senate, and there will be a vote on whether to convict the president. I have spoken to Speaker Pelosi, who informed me that the articles will be delivered to the Senate on Monday. Now, I've heard some of my Republican colleagues argue that this trial would be unconstitutional because Donald Trump is no longer in office, an argument that has been roundly repudiated, debunked by hundreds of constitutional scholars, left, right, and center, and defies basic common sense. It makes no sense whatsoever that a president or any official could commit a heinous crime against our country and then be permitted to resign so as to avoid accountability and a vote to disbar them from future office. Makes no sense. Regardless, the purveyors of this unusual argument are trying to delay the inevitable. The fact is, the House will deliver the article of impeachment to the Senate. The Senate will conduct a trial of the impeachment of Donald Trump. It will be a full trial. It will be a fair trial. But make no mistake, there will be a trial, and when that trial ends, senators will have to decide if they believe Donald John Trump incited the insurrection against the United States.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube.
Okay, let's just appreciate the erection thing for a minute. Absolutely brilliant. Before we get on to anything else, let's hear that again.
Incited the erection.
Sorry, what was that? You don't get this often. Let me have a laugh.
Incited the erection.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Senate Leader Schumer, everyone. Here we go. Democratic control in Washington. 2 days in. This is what we've got.
Incited the erection.
Great. Love it. What he's saying makes sense. It looks like it's going to go ahead sooner rather than later now, but we will wait and we will see. Back over to the United Kingdom. But first, actually, I just want to say a couple of things. Biden is taking, compared to what the Labour Party here says it wants to do, compared to, obviously, the Trump administration, and compared to the Johnson government, is taking the most ambitious actions, the most egalitarian actions to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. He's showing the most ambition, and he's taking the most sensible approach. Out of any of those sort of four political blocks, Labour here, Tories here, Republicans over there, Biden and Biden specifically, many Democrats have been an absolute car crash in local offices dealing with it, taking the most ambitious approach of them all. Good. That's great. It's good to see. Keep the pressure on. We have to attack Biden as much as we attack Trump. We want to see absolutely anything done at any point. Now, back over to the UK and local authorities who are taking on risky levels of debt to shore up dwindling resources during the pandemic present a significant risk to the government's finances. MPs have been warned. The Commons Public Accounts Committee urged the Treasury on Friday to detail how it will manage the risk to the nation's finances as the extra pressures of dealing with coronavirus adds to the pressure on councils. Well, this makes sense. I've got a lot to say on this. First thing to say is why? What is it with right-wing governments and not handing relief down to the local level? Like, what the hell? Why can't you just do it? It's what they should be doing. Why won't they do it? Over in the US, it was we don't want to bail out Democrat-run failed cities. Over here, it's, I don't know, we're not bailing out Labour councils. It's absolutely bloody ridiculous. I don't know why they have a fetish for impoverishing, local areas as, big right-wing national governments. Who knows? This is how the government... We don't talk about this enough, but this is a technique the government has used through the years to demonise Labour and chip away at its local credibility. When you hear voters in certain die-hard Labour areas going, I had to vote Tory, the Labour Council won't do anything for us, you look into it, and very often it's because the Labour Council has been starved of funding for years. And they can't, do big deficit spending like the national governments can. They go insolvent. And the government's job, is to rectify that. It's not their fault. Is the government running a surplus? No, it's not. If it was, this would be chaos. An absolute disaster. We wouldn't be able to do anything. So it has to be done. It's not a party political thing. This is how the government for years has chipped away at Labour's credibility. And it's in the sort of pie of different reasons for why Labour got trounced at the last election. Why so many traditional Labour voters felt that Labour was now the establishment, they had to vote against them. Part of that feeling, along with myriad other factors, was the fact that Labour was seen as the establishment in their area, hadn't been delivering for them. Why hadn't it been delivering for them? Austerity at the local level. And that is the sort of austerity that we will see continue for years to come. Not even close to being reversed at the moment. A little bit on Brexit for you, but first I want to see if we can hear what Nancy Pelosi is saying on impeachment. A small update for you on that, because it does look like it might be happening sooner rather than later. Have a listen. This was her yesterday.
Reading is to your mind.
That's an advert, as always, for still the Mind Valley thing. That always pops up as an advert when I'm on here for some reason. Here's Pelosi.
Madam Speaker, a year ago, in the context of the last impeachment trial, you said that you cannot have a trial without documents and witnesses.
That's right.
I'm wondering what kind of trial you'd like to see your impeachment managers put forward. And is that part of what you're waiting for, some kind of guidance from the Senate about how they'll conduct themselves before you send that article over?
Well, let me just say this. We were talking about two different things. We're talking about a phone call that the president had as one part of it, that people could say, I need evidence. This year, the whole world bore witness to the president's incitement, to the execution of his call to action, and the violence that was used. So I believe it or not, don't take part in the deliberations of preparing for the trial. That's up to the managers. But I do see a big difference between something that we all witnessed versus what information you might need to substantiate an article of impeachment based on, in large part, on a call that the president made and described as perfect. It was perfectly unconstitutional. This is different, but again, it's up to them to decide how we go forward, when we go forward. It will be soon. I don't think it will be long, but we must do it.
That's Pelosi there. It's not a huge amount to disagree with there. The only problem is the first impeachment trial is destroying the credibility of this one, because the first one was party political, whereas this one is, it actually has to be done. Over to Brexit, and the government must quadruple the number of customs agents in the UK to ensure businesses struggling with mountains of Brexit red tape do not buckle under the strain, Labour has said in a letter to Michael Gove. The Shadow Chancellor for the Duchy of Lancaster, Rachel Reeves, put it to Gove that industry figures showing that only 12,000 customs agents had been trained fell far short of the 50,000 the government accepted last February would be necessary to cope with Brexit. Writing, can you please inform me what the government is doing to address this shortfall as swiftly as possible, so that businesses don't have to deal with even more disruption? What steps are the government taking to address this? How will it support businesses as they grapple with huge amounts of new red tape and disruption? It is in the interests of us all for British business to thrive under the new UK-EU trading relationship, as hauliers and the industries they support buckle under unprecedented red tape through no fault of their own. They need a plan of practical support from the government urgently. Make no mistake, this is, be under no illusion, this is an elite Brexit. It's a Brexit of the party by the 1%, therefore it is a party, it is a Brexit for the 1%. The Tories never, and we haven't let them off the hook on this, right? We have let them off the hook on this. They never prepared for the reality of Brexit. David Cameron refused to in 2016. Theresa May brushed aside concerns in a very cavalier manner during her administration. And Boris Johnson, well, is Boris Johnson. Lies through his teeth on just about anything. So that's where we are. They never prepared for the single biggest disruption to the way we do business since the 1980s. They should have done, obviously, from day one, from the time it was even proposed. The Tories lied about how easy this would be. The Tories lied about the realities of the trade-offs they'd have to make. The job of Labour, if it gets into government, is to remake the settlement in the interests of a genuine workers' Brexit. Whether they do that and whether they'll have the courage to do that, even if they get into government, which is pretty unlikely at the moment, remains to be seen, but that is what has to be done. We are not having a workers' Brexit. The prospect of a workers' Brexit has been denied because we voted in the party of the 1%. That is it from me today. I am back tomorrow from 7 PM, same time, same place, so subscribe to this YouTube channel with notifications on. On Twitter, I'm at Toby Joshua UK, or you can get me on Medium for my twice daily 2-minute reads at Toby Joshua Politics. Thanks for joining, thanks for listening. Please share with your friends, please like the video, and I'll see you very soon. For listening, please share